साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Om Sri Sai Ram. We offer our most reverent pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagwan. Today is the third day of Sri Satya Sai Summer Course 6th phase. We welcome all our seniors and participants to this morning session of online summer course. I request Brother Umakanta to share information regarding today's subject and our today's Sai Ram, Brother Umakanta.
प्रतिभासाय विद्महे प्रेमरूपाय धीमहि तन्नः साई प्रचोदयात्। We offer our most humble salutations at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Respected elders, dear Sai brothers and sisters, loving Sai Ram to one and all. Welcome to this third day of online summer course program. The Swami's compassion and grace on all of us. Sri Shakti Sai summer course is blessed on summer hours in Vrindavan 72. In fact, the study material, the discourses are his Bhagavans. The speaker are his own students, and the listeners too are his own children from Odisha. What a memorable moment this life is witnessing in this 7 day of Sadhana Saptah and summer course. We are most fortunate to have with us Professor Shiv Shankar Sai, who was born in a Sai family. Of course, we welcome you, sir, to the Sai family of Odisha and also to the online summer course program. Professor Shiv Shankar Sai began his journey as Madhvika student in the year 72 at Guntur, Andhra Pradesh, and then went to join Swami's College for his pre-university course in the year 1976. He subsequently completed his graduation, post-graduation, and awarded PhD in fiber optic sensors with gold medal from Swami's Friends in the year 1989. Post his education, Immediately, Swami appointed him as physics lecturer in the year 1990. His areas of research are fiber optic sensor, optical networking, and nuclear medical instruments. He has more than 60 publications in national and international journals. He has handled a number of funded projects from the Government of India, agencies like Department of Science and Technologies, DRDO, NRP, Department of Atomic Energy, PRNS, and also University Grant Commission, etc. He received all-round gold medal from the Divine Hands in the year 1980 as the final year BSc student during the Second World Conference in 80s. He became the warden of Prasanthi Nilam campus in the year 1994 and served under Swami's direct guidance till 2011. Those are momentous moments. And as a Karma Yogi, we know about him from his own students. He is the former head of the Department of Physics, Dean of Science Faculties, and the director of Prasanthi Nilam campus of Sri Sathya Institute of Higher Learning. Currently, he is the convener of the newly established research center, Central Research Instrumentation Facility. It's our good fortune to share Swami's blessings, and when we offer it, sir, please be one day speaker in the online summer course program. He was so kindly agreed, and we are very thankful to you, sir. Now we request you. Today we'll be covering the Summer House in Vrindavan, chapters 7, 8, 9, 10. But only we're giving a tentative title, Lessons from Bhagavad Gita. And all the lessons, of course, they are in Bhagavad Gita, and it's all Bhagavan's grace that we are fortunate to have you here now. Saram Bapi Bhai.
Sairam.
Sir, are you able to hear us?
Sairam, sir, are you able to hear us?
Yes.
Sir, can you please start? We're all ready.
Sairam sir, your audio is not able to. Sir, you are able to hear us?
ସାଇରାମ ବାପି ଭାଇ ଟିକେ ତାଙ୍କ ସହିତ ସାରଙ୍କ ସହିତ କଣ୍ଟାକ୍ଟ କରିଦେଲେ ଭଲ ହବ। ମେ ବି ଭାବୁଛି ଡିସକନେକ୍ଟେଡ ହେଇଯାଇଛନ୍ତି।
Sairam Uma? Uma, can you call, sir? Uma or Lucky Bhai or Chinmay, whoever has the number, can you call, please?
You have the
Sairam, it is a humble request to all the participants. Kindly pray to Bhagwan, chanting silently Sai Gayatri, and all are requested to mute their mics. All are requested to mute their mics. Please adhere to the discipline of this online summer course. Please mute all your mics so that the session will be carried forward the smoother way. That is a humble request to all the participants to mute their mics and not to share videos while the session is going on. And please keep on chanting Sai Gayatri silently till Sir joins. Sai Ram.
Sairam. So now
Sairam
you
Uma.
are able to. Sairam, I have contacted sir. Actually, because of some other important call, he was bit busy. Now he has already joined. So now request sir, are you able to hear us now? Sairam sir, your video is half visible. Sairam. Sairam, just wait one.
Mine.
Sairam.
सर को कहले
तारा भाई की सिद्धार्थ की अच्छा
ডিসকাশন করছো স্যার।
अच्छा अच्छा कथा जान भगवान का ये विशेष कृपा हम समस्त उपरे भगवान का दिव्य संभाषण को हम अगर परिवेशन करिया पे हम साधनार मार्ग को आहुरी सरल करिया पे भगवान निजे ही स्पीकर मान को निजे स्टूडेंट मान को प्रेरणा देउछन ई सुंदर समय जीवन रे खूब कम समय पे आसता है
And I'll just give you one more try, and then after that we can do. Screen sharing is now
Please, sir.
paused. Screen sharing you are able to see, sir, but you are not able to hear.
Now we are able to hear you, but the screen
Fine. Should I connect through this thing, sir?
Yes, only you share the screen. That will be.
This conference will now be recorded.
Sairam, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, audible, very audible.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wonderful. Yes.
Voice is coming now.
Yes, yes.
I can continue without video also, because Papa, all
video,
people are waiting, no?
Whenever required, you can share your screen, sir. You can start the session.
Yeah.
So again, we welcome, sir, to this online summer course program, and
Yes.
welcome to Odisha. And start Sairam, sir.
Are you able to see, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, there's no problem. Swami's will. Okay. So, should I now start up with that thing? Right?
Yes, sir.
Please.
Right.
Video, I mean, this screen is clear?
Yes, sir. Screen is clear.
Okay. Sairam, then I'll just straight away start. Can you hear me nicely?
Yes, sir. You are loud and clear.
Thank you, sir. Humble pranams at Bhagwan's divine lotus feet. I pray to him for removing all the obstacles in this sacred task which was taken up by the Orissa Satyasai Seva organizations. I'm very happy that this summer course has been organized by the Orissa Seva organizations for disseminating what is very dear to Bhagwan, the Indian culture and spirituality. I'm immensely grateful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity, because it gave me an opportunity to reflect back what I have learned at Bhagwan's lotus feet under this title, Lessons from Bhagavad Gita. I seek once again Bhagwan's blessings so that this session we are able to interact and then ruminate what Bhagwan has mentioned in these discourses which he had lovingly given to the students during the summer course 1972. I have been given the opportunity to speak on the lessons from Bhagavad Gita from chapter 7 to chapter 10 of the Summer Showers in Vrindavan, 1972. As a teacher, I've taken Bhagwan's approach, not the traditional approach, but covering all the major points which Bhagwan has highlighted in these discourses. I have had the opportunity to attend the summer courses which were conducted by Bhagwan in 1977 to 79, the 1 month long summer courses. I was then a student of Vrindavan. I joined in 1976. So I had the opportunity to directly listen to him during those summer courses. Later on, Bhagwan had a shorter version of these summer courses for the university students of Satsai University in the early 90s. My understanding and what I am going to mention today is based on what little I have absorbed from Bhagwan's discourses in these summer courses and Sai literature. With that as an introduction, I offer everything to Bhagwan, our Bharat Bhagya Vidata. So let's move on. The 4 chapters which are to be covered, Swami, it has been titled as Purusha and Prakriti, the lessons from Bhagavad Gita, the path of bhakti and meditation. Bhagwan beautifully describes the very essence of Bhagavad Gita in all these chapters. Let's go through them one by one. As I mentioned, I have not taken the traditional approach of Bhagavad Gita right from the first stanza to the last stanza and then various chapters. Rather, I've taken Bhagwan's approach, highlighting the most important lessons which we can learn and practice them in our daily life. Now, before starting, Bhagwan gives beautifully the importance of study of the Shastras, including Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. Now, we all study and earn degrees, but what we study deals about the external world, which helps us to eke our livelihood. But we don't know about our own selves. Bhagwan describes Can you hear us, sir?
Yes, sir. We are able to hear. There is someone who is disturbing unmuted, so we are trying to talk.
Okay. Can you see my screen also?
Yes, sir. We are able to see your screen. We are seeing the folder.
Yes. Okay.
PPT is not coming, I think.
PPT is not coming?
Right now the PPT. No, right now the PPT is not coming.
Okay. No, I have not done anything.
The folder. Yes, sir. Yeah, we have seen only the folder.
Okay. Just then I will share once again the screen.
The screen is shared. You can open up the file, then automatically the slide will can visible. You can open up that file, sir. Yes.
I have opened the file actually. Are you able to see now?
No, the screen is visible, but the slide is not able to come. Maybe you can click there, and maybe the file is yet to open, sir. Can you just check once more?
No, it is open. Here it is completely open.
Completely open. Okay. Can you go to the next slide if it is visible there?
Can you see that now?
Maybe it'll take a while. It's not visible now. Not yet come, sir.
Here I am able to sorry. Can you see now, sir?
Maybe it will come. Let's hope.
Swamis.
It was visible just before 15 minutes when you said in the beginning.
Yeah.
That time it was clear, okay, like, you know, Bharat, Bhagya, Vidhata were able to see that. Right now, somehow.
Uma,
Yes. Now it's clear, visible, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You can go to the first, maybe it's Brahma Sutra is showing now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you also hear me, sir?
Sir, now you can have a slide show so that it will be more visible.
Yeah.
Sir, in lower side, the slide show is there in lower.
Yeah, I
yes,
actually
yes.
put the thing.
Yeah, it is good.
Okay.
It's visible now.
Shall I go ahead with it?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, it took time, that's all. So Bhagwan gives it's continuously changing. Is it continuously changing, sir?
Yes.
Sir, it's okay if it is not in the total preview. No issue.
Yeah.
You can continue, sir. No issue. You are able. Yeah, it's okay. You can continue, sir.
Okay, sir. So Swami actually started these summer courses in Indian culture and spirituality to expose and make us familiar with the rich heritage and the knowledge and treasure which our Indian tradition has for us. Now, actually, in those days, 1972, Bhagwan used to ask them to give questions so that he would answer, just like what you are having now. The format, morning lectures are given and then you collect the questions, and then in the evening you are asking the speaker to answer them. Bhagwan also used to do that. And one of the questions which Bhagwan got was, Swami, what is God? Does God really exist? Because we don't see him. So Swami, in his discourse, he took up this question and beautifully answered. He says, to ask this question itself is meaningless. Swami says, the very word that does God exist itself proves his existence. And then Swami actually beautifully gives out a Telugu poem which says that if you see a train running, you know for sure there is a driver to run the train. You may not see him, but you are pretty sure that there is a driver because the train is running. In a similar manner, if you see even an automatic light, now we have an automatic trains. Similarly, if you see an automatic light, you may not need anybody to switch on or off, but you know pretty well that there is an inventor. There is somebody who has made this automatic light. And then final blow Swami gives. He said, when you see this universe beautifully crafted, we have every day sunrise at an appropriate time, early in the morning, and sunset in the evening. Precisely happens come what may. The seasons, the rains, and the harvest, everything coming in clock precision. Then can you not expect the existence of a higher force? And then you may call it as God, you may call it anybody. These master creator or a planner is definitely there who is guiding the world. Swami says, so the question that does God really exist itself proves the existence of God. Then he goes on to explain the difference between the two very important words which we often come across in our Shastras and Puranas and Bhagavad Gita, the Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is, Swami defines as indestructible, changeless, and eternal soul. And Prakriti is the manifestation of this Purusha. It takes the form of this nature and the world. Another question which was put to Swami during that summer course was, what is the cause and how does the world go on? What drives this world? And then while answering this question, Bhagavan puts a counter question. He says, how do you get a dream? What is the cause of a dream? Because we get dreams very often. He says the cause of the dream is Maya. It is God's own Leela. And Swami tells that famous quotation, which is often quoted, because that is very essence of why he has created this world. He says, in the beginning, I was alone. I have separated myself from myself so that I may love myself. As Bhagavatam says, this world is his play. For his play, he has created this world. So there is absolutely no dichotomy. There is all the things which we see is only a manifestation of his own self, God's own creation. But we see in the world, we have men, women, and then we have youngsters, old people. We see this diversity. Swami explains the existence of this diversity in a beautiful analogy. He says, in a girls' college, Swami gave the example of the Anantapur campus of our university. It's a completely girls' college, which is situated near Anantapur, 80 kilometers from Puttaparthi. He says, when I go there, they put up a drama. In the drama, they have male characters. They have, Maharaja. A girl dresses herself donning the role of a Maharaja with all the ornaments and everything connected with a Maharaja. He says, even though she has adorned the Maharaja dress, but she knows that she is a girl. Similarly, all the characters, whatever the role they may be playing, they may be a servant, they may be a Maharaja, they may be a wife, a husband, and whatever are the roles in the drama, all of them are played by girls. In a similar manner, Swami says, this Prakriti is, we are all part and products of this Prakriti, both men and women. And why are we part of this Prakriti? Why are we not Purusha? As it is known, generally men are Purushas, because Swami says that weaknesses of the human frailties are there common for both men and women. All of us are made from the same 5 koshas, 5 pranas, and 5 elements. So all of us are products of this Prakriti. Therefore, we are all only Prakriti, the men and women of Prakriti. Only Purusha is the God himself, because he is powerful and he is energy. And Swami says the coexistence of this Purusha and Prakriti makes the world go on. The world goes on and on because his divine Leela, where Purusha in the form of God and Prakriti, the manifestation of this Purusha and the energy of the Purusha, is there in the world. And then Swami again gives an analogy from Chandogya Upanishad. The analogy very often quoted is the potter and the pots. Swami tells a potter who makes mud pots and pans, and then various types of utensils using the mud. Swami says the potter picks up this clay or a mud and then brings it to home and then makes different pots and pans of different sizes for different purposes and different functions. In fact, he bakes them so that the same mud which actually dissolves, or the same water which dissolves this mud, is retained in the same pot which is baked by the fire. Generally the potter takes first water and puts it in the mud and dissolves the mud and then brings to the shape which he requires. And then after the pot is made, he dries it up and then bakes it in the oven. And when it is baked, it even retains the water, as we all know. So Swami says all the pots, pans, and various types of utensils which the potter makes with the mud are different in sizes, in shapes, in colors, and for their function, utility. But then once they break, they go back to the mud, to the same mud. It may be a glass, it may be a jar, it may be a pot, but then once they are broken, they go back to their original form, which is mud. And Bhagavan tells, and in the Chandogya Upanishad it is mentioned, this mud is the Prakriti, God is the potter, and then the mud and water, which are of Prakriti, the form of Prakriti, God, our creator, makes this creation, and then we have different types of dehatma, or the body. And then once we leave this body, we all merge back into Paramatma. So the lofty ideal of that Brahma who is there within all of us are brought by the simple analogy from Chandogya Upanishad, that mud and water and the potter. And then Swami beautifully again gives another analogy from Brahma Sutra. As we all know, Brahma Sutras, the Prasthana Traya includes the Brahma Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, and all these things. And then he beautifully says this Brahma Sutra, the thread of Brahma, the sacred divine thread, runs through all of us. But in some, it is seen brilliantly. It is seen very clearly. He is or she is the man of God, woman of God. The Bhagavan's brilliance is shown very clearly in some people, whereas it is not shown so explicitly in others, but all the same, it is there. To explain this concept of Brahma Sutra, which is running through all of us, the entire creation, Swami gives a beautiful, very, very touching and very impressive analogy. And that analogy is the analogy of the thread in the Japamala. Swami says we all use Japamalas to do the Gayatri Mantram or the Sai Nam Jap. Swami says that thread which binds all the beads, 108 beads in the Japamala, it runs through each and every one of these 108 beads. But then in all the beads, this sutra or the thread is not seen. Because if we take a Japamala made up of tulasi or a rosary beads or wooden beads, the thread is not seen. Only the tulasi wood or the wood part of it is only seen. But only in a Japamala, which is made up of crystal beads, the sutra, Brahma, the sutra which ties all these beads, the crystal beads, is very clearly seen. And then Swami says, this Brahma, the Brahma Padartha, as Swami calls it, is similarly is there in each and every one of us, in both the animate and inanimate objects in this cosmos. But in some, it shows up brilliantly, but in others, it is hidden. And it's the duty of the person, the human being, men and women, to uncover this thread and bring forth its brilliance. And another example Bhagavan gives, again, to reiterate this very concept of Brahma Sutra running through all of us. And that is a very familiar example which Bhagavan gives in so many discourses. He says the electric current is same in all the electrical appliances. In the fan, this electric current rotates the fan and gives you a cool breeze. In the heater, the same electric current gives you the heat and the warmth and cooks your food. And in the bulb, electrical bulb, this same current gives you light. And then electrical bulbs are varied type, varied colors, varied wattages, gives you different types of colors, different types of luminosity, and then gives you different glows. But if you analyze it, the current in all these appliances is same, but depending on the utility and the way in which they are made, the electric current behaves or shows itself in different forms, in the form of air, in the form of heat, in the form of light, and so on. So in a similar manner, Swami says, this current is Brahman, the God in all of us. He is same, but in some of us, it shows itself up as in a form in which we display. In others, it may be hidden, but all the same, it is there in every single individual in this cosmos, every single animate and inanimate objects in this cosmos. And Swami tells, then what is your call? It is the sadhana. It is the sadhana which you have to do to bring out this Brahma Sutra, this electric current of Brahman, so that it manifests itself and shows brilliantly the power of God. So Swami tells us the Shastras, which is the bedrock of our Indian culture and spirituality, are there to help you, to guide you. They are the guideposts. In fact, Swami says this summer course is organized to make you familiar with these Shastras, with these Upanishads, with the Brahma Sutras, with the Bhagavad Gita, so that you may really get the benefit of the rich treasure which is enshrined in all these sacred texts. And Swami goes on to explain the importance of a teacher or an experienced people to guide us in the spiritual path. Swami says the Shastras are our teachers, the elders, the ones who have seen God, the ones who follow the commands of God in their daily life, are the people who can give us the guidance for us to follow the path of God. And then he gives an example of diya, or the lamp. We have the lamp, we have the oil, we have the wick, we have the matchbox, everything is there. Will you get a light? No. He says you require somebody to light the matchstick and then light the lamp, so that you get the light and the warmth of the lamp. So similarly, he says you have the gold, the raw material gold, the furnace, the tools to make the ornaments. Will you get the ornaments? No. You require a goldsmith, a person who knows the art of making the ornaments. He should be there so that all these things can be used. You get a beautiful golden lustrous ornament. So you require a goldsmith, you require a person to light the matchstick for you to experience either a light or an ornament. Similarly, the Shastras and the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita are our guides and guideposts. They help us to know what path we need to take, the Shreyas, the Shreyo Marga and the Preyo Marga. Especially these are very important at very early stage of our entering into our spiritual life. And then Swami again further goes down to our level to understand how the teacher is so very important. The Shastras, our teachers, are so very important. Swami says when the teacher is teaching A, B, C, D, the letters the fundamental letters in the English language or in our vernacular languages. He writes them on the board and make the students repeat A, B, C, D, and so on. He says A looks like this, B looks like this, and then makes the children repeat and repeat and repeat number of times so that it sticks into their head. Similarly, Swami says we need to undertake the study of the Shastras, which are like our guideposts, so that we learn them continuously and we remember them at the time which we require them. So these Shastras tell us about the Sanatana God and gives us a route map to reach him. You know, the guideposts, when we go to a new place, a pilgrimage center or a historical place, there are guides, paid guides we call them. He says we go them and then they come to us. He said, would you like us to explain? And then we say yes. They go on explaining to us what is situated where and what is the significance of each of these places, who built that, and all the details regarding each of these places which we are trying to visit in a new pilgrimage center or a historical place. Similarly, Swami says these Shastras and Puranas and Bhagavad Gita are like guideposts. They tell us about the aspects of God, how he can be reached, how he can be experienced. And therefore, he says, revere these Shastras, revere these sacred texts and study them diligently. Now, with that, he finishes off the first lesson about the Purusha and Prakriti, and then urges us to undertake the study of Shastras and Bhagavad Gita. And then this very summer course, I'm very happy, keeping in the legacy which Bhagwan has established, is an endeavor by Sri Sathya Sai Seva organization in tune with the vision of our beloved Bhagwan to make us familiar with these sacred texts and the beautiful lessons which we can draw and which we can implement them in our own lives so that we may be benefited. And this by itself, this 1.5 hours lectures or a 1 week summer courses, we cannot cover everything. Swami also gives beautifully an analogy to explain this fact. He says, I am only giving you serving you pickle. You know, when we have a beautiful meal in front of us, they put in our Indian, you know, especially in South Indian tradition, we have even a pickle which is put, and then pickle is put very little. It is not as much as our rice or as much as in quantity as your curry. Pickle is put very little. Why? Because pickle is very powerful and very tasty. Even a little bit of it, we take little bit and put it on our tongue, because that taste is beautiful and then indescribable. He says, this meal which I am serving through this summer course is like a pickle. You are made to get exposed to the taste of Bhagavad Gita, the taste of Shastras, the taste of Brahma Sutras, taste of Vedas, taste of Bhagavatam, and so on. It's only little is served, and of course it depends on the person who is delivering it also, what is his taste. But just enjoy whatever you can, but know that there is much more. Get inspired to dive deep and make it as a part of your daily routine. So in the first lesson, Swami inspires us to take up the study of the Shastras and gives the importance that we are nothing but the sparks of the divinity. The Brahma Sutra runs through all of us. In the second chapter, in the second lesson, Bhagavan gives the very quintessence of Bhagavad Gita. As we all know, in fact, no Indian would be there who does not know the Bhagavad Gita. And then this Bhagavad Gita is a song of God, directly from the God's own mouth. Bhagavan Sri Krishna has given to Arjun. So it is coming, it is a song of God directly sung by God himself. So it contains the precious pearls of wisdom. And it is prasadam, because whatever comes, whatever is given by God is prasadam. So Swami tells you have to take and then imbibe these lessons as pearls of wisdom, as a prasadam directly from God's own mouth. And then the very essence of Bhagavad Gita, Swami says, is bhakti or devotion, which is the royal path to the divine destination, which is common for all of us. Whether you are a man or a woman or a boy or an old age person, everyone, God is the only destination for all of us. And then he says bhakti or the devotion is the very panacea for all the ills of the world. Here, let me recall one beautiful incident which happened between Bhagwan and our college students. We were all sitting in the veranda. You know, Swami used to come after giving interviews to the devotees. He would come to the students and the faculty and interact with them, and then used to share his divine wisdom. I do not know how much we have imbibed for that, you know, glorious moments which we had, but then few things are etched in my mind. And then this student, Swami asked any questions. Swami is always fond of answering to what our needs are, like a loving mother. He says, any questions which is bothering you. It could be spiritual question, because he was dealing with young boys of, you know, from 8th class to PhD students, from 15 years or 14 years to almost 26 years, 28 years old. He says he comes down to their level and then answers them. It could be a mundane question. It could be a very, very lofty, spiritually elevating question. Both of them he would answer in a manner which is understandable by the students. So when Swami said, any questions, this boy very innocently raised his hand, said, Swami, I have a question. Swami said, what is the question? Swami said, Swami, God's grace saves everyone. But how does it happen, Swami? In Bhagavad Gita, you have mentioned to us the karma theory, the theory of karma. It says, whatever we do, we need to reap the fruits of that action. On the other hand, Swami, you have mentioned that God's grace saves us from our difficulties, whether it is health related difficulties or whether our financial difficulties or our mental difficulties, depression, everything. Swami says, very, very good question. He says, boys, I will explain to you in a very, very simple manner. God has created this karma theory. So God will not violate this karma theory because he himself has created, and it is no fun to create or to violate the rules which he himself has put down. But, and Swami gives a beautiful, such a down to earth analogy which could be understood by the students. Swami says, when a doctor is doing operation, he cuts open the stomach with a knife. When you cut open our body, naturally there will be pain. There will be pain, and then the patient may not be even be able to withstand this pain. And then what does the God do? And God simply gives first the anesthesia. The doctor gives the anesthesia, the general anesthesia if it is a big operation, or the local anesthesia if it is a small operation. Why does he do that? He does that so that he may not, the patient may not feel the difficulty, the pain of the cutting of the body. Similarly, Swami says, God's grace is like anesthesia. Beautiful. He says, is the pain not there for the patient? No, pain is there, but anesthesia numbs the pain, numbs the nervous system so that the patient does not feel the pain of the operation. Swami says, God's grace is like that. Pain is there, but he ensures that devotee runs through his karma without suffering too much. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita, which is a song of God, gives us so many such tips. The very essence of Bhagavad Gita, Swami says, is Tat Tvam Asi. Very often quoted the Vedic dictum. Tat is the Paramatman, Tvam, the Jivatman, Asi, the connection. You are verily the embodiment of the Paramatma. And then when we talk about the essence of Bhagavad Gita, we cannot help but recalling what Bhagavan has beautifully summarized the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Again, this is told by Swami in many discourses. I remember one beautiful interaction with Bhagavan. Our students simply asked Swami, what is the essence of Bhagavad Gita? In one of those conversations, Swami said, boys, there are 700 slokas, very difficult for you to remember all the things, but don't worry, I'll give you a just simple capsule. He says, we give a capsule of a tablet just so that you don't have to have the pain of an injection from the doctor for the ill which we are facing. He says, what is the first stanza, the first word of the first stanza of Bhagavad Gita? He says, Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yutsava mamakaha pandavas chaiva kim kurvat sanjaya. Dharma kshetre, dharma is the first word of this first stanza of Bhagavad Gita. And then he says, what is the last word of the last stanza of Bhagavad Gita? He again repeats, the yatra yogeshwara krishno yatra partho dhanuddaraha tatta shri vijayo bhutir dhruva nitir matir mama. Mama is the very last word where the Krishna assures, wherever there is Yogeshwara Krishna and wherever the Partha with his bow, there is bound to be Vijaya, Shri, the prosperity, and without any doubt, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. Without any doubt, there will be prosperity, there is a victory, there is a Vijaya and happiness. He says these two words, the first word of the first stanza, Dharma, and the last word of the last stanza is mama. So he says mama dharma is the very essence of Bhagavad Gita. And Swami goes on explaining, he gave beautiful series of discourses on mama dharma, which I would urge all the participants to go through. And it is the Radio Sai has replete with those things. You can go through those discourses, but in very simple form, Swami comes down. He says, boys, your duty, dharma is the duty, which is a loose translation, is duty of a student. Follow. This is your swadharma, your dharma which you need to follow. And then there is atma. Mama dharma is then atma dharma. Mama dharma, atma dharma is same. So follow your duty in consonance with the atma dharma, the dharma which is attached to the atman or the God. There will be no conflict between your dharma and the atma dharma. Whenever there is a conflict with your swadharma and atma dharma, then give importance to atma dharma, because that is higher. When there is a conflict between God and the body, that swadharma, the mama dharma and then atma dharma, then atma dharma wins over. That is, bank on the God within you, the conscience within you, who is in the form of God, in the form of conscience inside you. He says, whenever you're in doubt, call on him. If you need him, you deserve him. You have him all the way. Only you just need to call on him very, very intensely, and he will come and show the way. Then Swami goes on to explain the concept of Saranagati. He says the traditional meaning of Sharanagati is offering your body, mind, and senses to God. He says it is funny. How can you offer your body, mind, and senses? Because you yourself do not have any control over them. Can you control your body the way in which you want? You want to study. Can you control your mind? Mind, it is worse. You want to do certain things, but you never are able to achieve it because your mind does not obey you, and then your senses do not obey you. So when these body, mind, and senses are not in your control, what do you mean by saying, Lord, I'm offering them and I am surrendering them to you? Swami says it is meaningless to say this one. The real surrender will come only if you have a complete understanding of divine. The I-ness should disappear, and then you have the true offering of thought, word, and deed, which will manifest. And then Krishna teaches Bhagavad Gita to Arjun only after he completely surrenders. Initially, Arjun depended on his own strength, his own valor, his own Gandiva. But then when it actually, the moment comes when he sees that both armies, and then he suddenly realizes the gravity of what is going to happen. He had the Purvatapa. So immediately he becomes distraught, and then he says, he surrenders himself, Lord, I cannot fight. My mind is confused. Please help me. And when he surrenders, then Krishna teaches Bhagavad Gita. In fact, this sort of surrender of even Lord, I surrender to you, is also, Swami says, is a lower form of surrender. Why? Because Lord is separate and then you are separate. There's a master and servant attitude. He says in the real Sampurna Saranagati, even this distinction disappears. There is no master, there is no servant, because both are one, are part of each other. Then Swami talks about the deservedness. To receive these great truths, we require arhata, a deservedness. And then Swami again gives beautiful, from Nyaya Shastra, he quotes the Markata Kishora Nyaya and Marjala Kishora Nyaya. Again, it is very well known in our scriptures, these, and it is called Markata Kishora Nyaya, which means the baby monkey clinging onto the mother monkey for its survival. The mother monkey jumps from tree to tree. It does not take care of the baby. The onus is on the baby, on the devotee, to cling on to the mother, to our Lord, to our master. The onus is just like the baby monkey clings on to the stomach of the mother monkey, so that it is completely safe whether monkey is walking or jumping from tree to tree. Whereas the Marjala Kishora Nyaya are the cat, the kitten. It is a different story. Kitten is totally protected by mother cat. It does not cling on to the mother. It simply surrenders to its mother. And whenever kitten wants to travel or take its kitten, it catches hold of its neck and takes it. The kitten need not do anything else, completely gives itself to its mother. It's a duty of the mother to take care of it. Similarly, Swami says there are two ways to get out of this bondage of the samsara, a bondage which clings us to this world. He says, first method is a dasoham. Lord, I am yours. I am your servant. And thus eliminate our ego, become humbler and humbler and smaller. The chains which bind us, you can come out of them. And this marga is called Bhakti Marga. Dasoham. I am your servant, Lord. And then thus we get out of this bondage. The second marga is the Gnana Marga, Swami says, and that is Shivoham. You become bigger and bigger and break the chains, and this is Gnana Marga. Like the Hanuman who was chained in the Lanka, he becomes bigger and bigger, and then the chains automatically break. And Swami says this is the Shivoham Marga or the Gnana Marga. Depending on your propensities, depending on our likes and dislikes, any one of these margas, Swami says you can take them. But then the path of bhakti, the third lesson which Bhagavan tells us, is the most important lesson which Swami urges all of us, the youngsters, the old, all the devotees to absorb. And then Swami goes on in this lesson to explain the qualifications of Arjuna for receiving this sacred text, Bhagavad Gita. He said, there are bigger people, there are better people. There are Bhishmacharya, who is more powerful, who is more knowledgeable. But then the God did not teach him Bhagavad Gita because there is a dichotomy between thought, word, and deed. He knew fully well Pandavas were on the right side, but he still did not leave the Kauravas, and he was the chief of the army of the Kauravas. So he did not deserve to get the Bhagavad Gita. What about Dharmaja? He is much more virtuous, very good, but he too did not deserve to receive Bhagavad Gita. Swami said because he had only afterthought, what they call paschatapa. He lamented after the war is over, oh, I am guilty of killing my own kith and kin, a very sorry man. Whereas Arjuna had all the qualities. He was virtuous. He had the forethought, are called Purvatapa. Swami names it as Purvatapa. That is, he understands the situation and then knows what are the consequences of the action which he's going to take. When in the midst, in 1 minute, the war is going to start, and then he is ready to forego the luxuries of the kingdom if he wins, or the Veera Sarga if he dies in the battle. He says, I do not want both of them, but I only seek your refuge, Lord. and in the battlefield, that's how he receives the Bhagavad Gita. So Swami tells us we need to have the arhata, or the deservedness, and this deservedness to know the mysteries of the Lord. And this, Swami says, can be earned through our own conduct and behavior. In fact, Swami beautifully describes this path of bhakti. Bhakti is essentially love of God. Swami says, distinguishes the prema and kama, which appear to be synonymous, but they are completely different. Prema is the one which liberates, bestows happiness, whereas kama ties you up. Kama, the desire, the lust, ties us up to the bondage. Prema is pure in quality, whereas kama is impure. And then most important part which Swami stresses about the prema is it flows from one person to other and encompassing all, and then you love the entire creation. Swami says you change your drishti to prema drishti, loving all, encompassing all the creation, then you reach God. Whereas kama, or the lust, is tied up with one or few individual at the most. So it ties you up. It is not all encompassing. That's a major distinction between the prema and the kama. And Swami says prema and kama coexist. Prema is a rose flower, and then below that rose flower you have the thorn. The prema, which is the rose flower, and kama, which is the lust, is the thorn which is just behind the rose flower. Both of them exist. You only take the rose flower and leave the lust or the kama. So true prema is the one that realizes that we should love and respect the divine which is present in everyone. And then, as Swami says, we need to earn our deservedness. God, we can achieve this deservedness following the righteous path on all occasions. God is only a witness. We make or we mar our future through our actions. Now, Swami gives a beautiful example again from the Bhagavad Gita setting. He says, in few minutes, everything was over. Even Bhagavad Gita was over. In few minutes, the war is going to start, and they are going to blow the bugle, the Shanku. And then suddenly, the Dharmaraja removes the armors and the shoes and starts walking towards the Kaurava army. Bhima was angry, Arjuna was angry. They said, what is this? Why is the brother doing in such a funny manner? And of course, the opposite side, Kaurava army, was jubilant. He says, the war is over. They are surrendering. But Krishna silences Bhima and Arjuna. He says, just follow your elder brother Dharmaja, because he knew what is going to happen. He knew why Dharmaja is doing what he's doing. Dharmaja goes and touches the feet and then seeks the blessings of Bhishma, says for permission, because he was like father for them. He nurtured them, taught them everything. So to fight with a father, you need to take permission. So he goes and touches the Bhishma's feet and says, please give me permission, because you are like a father. And then, of course, the Bhishma, and the same thing he does it with Dronacharya, their guru, who taught them archery and everything else. Both of them blessed them with full heart. He said, because even in that such a difficult moment, war is going to start and everyone is ready, they did not forget that etiquette, the righteous act of going and taking the blessings of the elders. And then, of course, because of them, they are Dharma Swarupas. So the moral is, we shape our destiny through our conduct and behavior. So do not deviate from the right path, even if it means difficulties. Swami tells this one, and then tells that He says you have to follow the path of righteousness, because that is going to save you. Finally, the Pandavas won over the Kauravas. Whatever be the vyuha of the Kauravas, finally Dharma wins, because Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. If you protect the Dharma, Dharma itself will protect you. And then Swami again coming down to our level, he says, even if you commit mistake, what is the atonement? He says, do not commit the mistake. By chance, if you have committed the mistake, Swami gives beautifully for the youngsters and then for the students. He says, repent wholeheartedly, without hiding, confide to your mother, father, or guru, and you will get their blessings. At least the effect will be reduced. And then Swami says, how do we develop this? The adherence to Dharma. He says, develop self-confidence. That is the very need of the hour today. We have everyone lecturing on the personality development, developing the self-confidence. Swami says it's all there in our own Shastras and Puranas and Bhagavad Gita. Even a small bird which sits on the top of a tree, a big tree, which is violently shaking because of the wind, the bird is not disturbed, because it depends not on the tree, but depends on the strength of its wings. So it is unperturbed. But today's youth, men and women, are constantly in doubt. Am I doing the right thing or not? Is it the correct path or not? It is because of the lack of confidence. And then Swami says, through sadhana, we need to overcome these vagaries of mind and learn to listen to our inner voice, the conscience, God within us. And then to learn to listen to our God within us, Swami said, purify your sight and thoughts. And world is full of attraction. So Swami says, make sure that you control your sight and then your thoughts. Then many of the things will be controlled. Your body, mind, senses come into a control if you were to control these two very, very important things. And Swami gives a personal example during the summer course. Swami says, people criticize Swami for organizing summer course. Will we change the youngsters of today by simply telling about Shastras and Puranas and Bhagavad Gita? He says, yes, it can be changed. Good words with pure intentions can bring about change in the society, because they change the individual. Society is made up of individuals, and individual changes, individual transformation is societal transformation, Swami said. And Swami also gives a beautiful Chinna Kada, when a teacher is teaching the youngsters, and then inspector walks in and teacher does not notice, and inspector gets angry. He says, why are you disobeying me? Why have you not shown the proper courtesy? Then his teacher says, I'm teaching the youngsters the good things of life. He said, will those things change? He says, yes, they do change. And then the inspector does not believe, and the intelligent teacher tells one of the students, go catch hold of his neck and throw him out of the room. And then immediately the inspector gets into rage. And then the teacher calmly replies, he said, sir, I have not done anything to you. The boy has not touched you. But why have you changed? Just the words which I uttered have changed, brought about so much of change in you. So the words, good words and bad words, will have effect on our mind. So speak always sweetly, speak less, speak properly. So the tongue has two functions. With that, I think we stop. The tongue has two functions. All other organs, eyes, ears, nose, and skin, have only one function to perform, whereas tongue has dual roles to play, both the taste and the talking, the power of talking. So Swami says you should be extremely careful about your talking, your tongue, controlling of the tongue. And then Swami tells that this control of tongue is the first step in our spiritual life. And Swami says, for this control of these propensities, evil propensities, he says, see no evil, see what is good. Hear no evil, hear what is good. Talk no evil, talk what is good. And this is way to Sai. And then with that, we complete the 3 lessons which Bhagavan tells us. I will just start just introduction to the 4th lesson, which is again very, very powerful lessons and gives you so many tips for all of us on meditation. And then Swami goes on explaining the all pervasiveness God, the diversity which we see in this world is so much. Swami says Muslims pray to Allah, Christians pray to Jehovah, Vaishnavas pray to Vishnu, Shaivites to Shiva, but all of them are praying to the same God. The same God is seen by different people in different manner. Ekam Sat, Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. The wise ones, Vipraha, see the same God in different forms, in different ways. But modern educational system with instant gratification, we want instantly, instant coffee, instant noodles, and instant mukti even. It does not tell us about this fundamental principle of God is in all. But Swami says life is not one way traffic lane. It is, you have to learn to give and you have to learn to receive. And then seeing the predicament of this modern day world, way back itself, the Shastras have given 4 lofty goals to human beings: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And then yesterday, I think Brother Sai Giridhar would have dealt extensively about these 4 Purusharthas. I will not touch much on that, but Swami says moksha, or the liberation, is the most important of all the 4 Purusharthas. The artha, we have to learn to earn artha, or the wealth, through dharmic means. And then you need to have kama associated with moksha. That means you need to have the desire to get a liberation or moksha, our ultimate destination. All these, Swami says, these 4 are only rungs in the ladder. Dharma is the basis and moksha is the ultimate aim. So all the other 2 are only rungs in this ladder. And then Swami reminds us that the Soham Tattvam, which is reminding continuously 21,600 times every day we are breathing in, we are saying Soham. Number of times Swami has elucidated on this point. Again, I will not go into the details of it because lot has been said about that one. The Omkara, the Pranavanatha, is the primordial sound from which all the sounds have emerged. And Swami gives a very down-to-earth example to make us understand this principle. This is how Omkara alone is the primordial sound. He says, when you are playing the harmonium, what are you doing? You are filling the bellows of the harmonium with air. And then when you press sa, and the note sa comes out. Different sari, gama, pada, all the 7 notes and all other subsidiary notes come from the same air which you have filled in. Harmonium gives only just pressing different notes gives you different sound. So similarly, Swami says the air which is the primordial sound is Omkara. That is the sound from which all other sounds have emanated. And Swami connects these sounds. You know, the Om is made up of A, U, Ma, A, U, Akara, Ukara, and Makara. And then Swami relates with the characters of Ramayana. Swami says Akara is the Lakshmana, and then Ukara is Bharata, and Makara refers to Shatrughna, and Omkara, which is a mixture of all these things. We start with the Akara and then goes to Ukara and then ends with Makara. All these three are merged, and Rama is that Omkaram himself. And then he goes on to elucidate the concept of Advaita. I would like to ask the organizers to tell me how much time I have. I would not like to transgress the time limits which are set.
Sairam,
Yes, sir.
sir, you can continue for 10 more minutes, I believe. Otherwise,
Sure.
if anything is left out, you
Sure,
can
sure.
also cover in the evening.
That will be more than enough. Is that okay? Is that okay with all the other
Yes,
people
sir.
also? Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Swami introduces us the concept of Advaita, non-dualism. And this is the very essence, the quintessence, as Swami says, of all the Shastras and Upanishads, the concept of Advaita. And Swami beautifully, very, very simple way, like, opening of the banana and then gives it to us, the concept of non-dualism or Advaita. He says, this is very simple. Yekoham bahusyam yekam yeva advitiyam brahma. He says the God is one. What you see, the diversity, is only a manifestation of the same God. And then I would like to very fondly recall this beautiful experience, how Swami taught me of this Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha. This is a very, essence of the Shastras. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha. Brahma is the truth. The truth is only Brahman. Jagan Mithya, Jagat, or this world, is Maya. Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha. The Jiva is none other than Brahma himself. Brahmaiva, only Brahma. He is the part and parcel of Brahma. So this is the thing. Once, Swami was speaking to all of us in a moral class. Every Thursday, Swami would come and then speak to the students on various moral aspects, introducing us to the concept of Shastras and so on. All through the year, even now, in all the Sai educational institutions, they have what's called moral class at the first hour of Thursday, Swami's day. So Swami has given us the moral class, this very beautiful principle, and in very nicely has told us. And in the evening, and then we all put up a drama, and then Swami was extremely happy, like a mother who is so happy. And then when she's very happy, she wants to share her happiness to with her children. He asked, boys, what do you want? Then we all, Swami, we wanted individual photographs. We were in Vrindavan studying there. And then Swami said, yes. Swami was so happy with us. He said, okay, come boys. And then we all rushed towards Swami. Swami said, no, you want an individual photographs, no? So now let's choose a good spot, and then turn towards the east, so that sun rays falls on that and the photograph comes nicely. And then Swami said, so I will stand here. Each one of you come, stand next to me, take a photograph, and then go back, and the next one can come. And then this was very patiently, we were 80 or so, patiently Swami waited in the sun for each of us to come and then stand next to him, and he would catch our hand, make us smile, and so that we can get a good photograph. And then after few students are over, then Swami gave this, boys, remember I have told you about the Brahma Satyam and Jagan Mithya. This I am proving to you. See, the Brahman, is standing fixed at this point. You, the Jiva, come one by one, standing next to me for a few seconds, getting a photograph and going back. Another Jiva comes, another student comes, and then repeats the same procedure. So Swami says, boys, understand this. God is eternal, but whereas Jagat, the very word Cha means coming and Gat is going. Jagat means coming and going. You come and go. That's the very nature of Jagat. or the world. So learn to stick on to Brahman, who is Satyam, not to Jagat or the Mithya or the Maya. So Swami tells us that even though there are other schools of Vedanta, these are three very standard schools of Vedanta in our Shastras: the Dvaita Vedanta, propounded by Madhvacharya, Visishtadvaita, propounded by Ramanujacharya, and Advaita, propounded by Sri Adishankaracharya. Dvaita is dualism. Vasishtadvaita is qualified non-dualism, and Advaita is the non-dualism, pure non-dualism. Swami says dual, non-dualism is the Advaita, is the ultimate and the truest philosophy. Then he introduces us to the beautiful story from Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, Shvetaketu and Uddalaka. Again, it's a very, very famous story. Swami again beautifully describes it, and how our Upanishads, they are not esoteric, they are practical texts. And in science we say, I can't believe what I can't experiment, I can't see. And then actually this Upanishad story beautifully illustrates how Upanishad stories, you do actually experimentation to drive home the point, the truth. Swami, and Uddalaka is the sage, and he has got a son, Shvetaketu, and then he sends his son to another guru to learn for 12 years, because the father does not teach the son. That bond of father and fatherly relation can overpower. And then son comes back after 12 years, and then father, with proud, having learned all the Vedas and Shastras and so on. Then the father notices and asks him, son, what have you learned it? And then the son repeats everything. Then he says, no, son, have you learned, have you studied that thing knowing which everything else is known? Have you experienced that thing by experiencing which nothing else need to be known? And then the Shvetaketu gets bouncers. He does not know what is that by knowing which everything else is known. He asks him to teach that one, and he says, no, you don't learn it just like this through the theory. He asks him to get water and few jaggery pieces or sugar pieces. Then he says, what is the shape of the jaggery, shape of the color of the jaggery, the texture of jaggery? And then he says, mix this jaggery into the water and stir it so that it completely dissolves. Then he asks Shvetaketu to observe, where is jaggery in this water, which is Panakam now, which is the sweet water? He says, no, it is not there. The shape is lost, the texture is lost, the color of the jaggery is lost. It has become one with water. Then the father Uddalaka asks him, taste the water from the top, taste the water, this water, sweet water from the middle and from bottom. And then Shvetaketu tells, it is all sweet all through. He says, just like this sugar and the jaggery pervades the entire water body, so is the Nirguna Brahman pervades all these saguna and the forms all in the thing. If you know this truth, the very essence of the Upanishads, then you would have known everything else. So Swami beautifully explains this concept. So bookish knowledge of Advaita is actually dangerous. I think I can stop here. Whatever few slides which I may have, I can continue in the evening during the question answer session, if that is okay, because Swami always tells us that we should stick to the time which is given to us. If that is okay with the organizers, I am ready.
Okay, sir. Ayu, sir.
Fine. Again, pray to Bhagwan and then express my gratitude to Bhagwan for giving me this wonderful and sacred opportunity to interact with you. Sorry for the difficulties which we had in the beginning. Probably that is Swami's will. Not probably, it is Swami's will. I am really sorry if I have any mistake from my side for having not got the yesterday when we checked, actually everything was very good, but I don't know, Swami's will that today there was some difficulty, but I'm sure it will be it is enough if we understand Swami's philosophy. That is the most important. The person who is telling is not important. The organizers are not important. What is important? How much we have derived from this satsang is most important. How much we have derived, how much we have understood Swami's principles, which we are going to implement in our lives, is most important. So may Swami bless us with that sadbuddhi to derive these beautiful pearls of wisdom from Bhagavad Gita, from Shastras, and from his discourses, so that we may become a better human beings to serve in his mission. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.
Sairam, respected sir, on behalf of all the participants, we express our heartfelt gratitude for taking us through the silky route of divinity by explaining and guiding the way to explore the blissful world of Shastras and Bhagavad Gita, quoting the teachings of Bhagavan himself. Thanks a lot for your blessed efforts to serve us with the quintessence meaning of Bhagavad Gita in a capsule form. Hope the Vidyarthis will be able to tread the path of Mama Dharma inspired by this wonderful deliberation. Jai Shri Ram. Let's pray Swami while listening to Vajan from his golden voice.
Satyam Jnanamanantam Brahma. Satyam Jnanamanantam Brahma. Satyam Jnanamanantam Brahma. Satyam Jnanamanantam Brahma. Satyam Brahma. Jnanam Brahma. Satyam Satyam Jnanam Brahma. Satyam Jnanam Satyam Satyam
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।